Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live back in studio, and it feels so good at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Bruce Harrell being elevated as a voice on public safety and fighting anti-Semitism is insane. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
I saw this article from Politico that everybody on the left is talking about today, which is about these text messages leaked from the Young Republicans where they say a whole bunch of awful things. It's awful. It's bad. It's terrible. Now do Jay Jones. It's awful. It's bad. It's terrible. Now do Hunter Biden. It's awful. It's bad. It's terrible. Now do any Democrat. They're horrible. They're wrong. But you know what the problem is? We go into our own little camps with this kind of stuff, right? Well, why should we condemn it? Because they never condemn what they do. Yeah, that's true. But that's also how we start allowing bad things in our party. You should say, yes, every single one of the kids on this chat should resign, but here's something else. They're also dumb kids. I know young Republicans ain't exactly that young. I don't know how young these specific young Republicans are, but you know you get to be a young Republican until you turn 40. So some of these kids ain't kids when you think of them as young Republicans. To ignore what is happening in our own party will make us become like the left. What do I mean by that? The left tolerated the far left radicals, the Hamas supporters, the trans ideology insanity, let's mutilate some children, the let's call for the assassination or the killing of people we don't like, and look where it got them. Look where it got them. That is now their entire party. Something fascinating was happening over the Jewish holidays. When you have almost a month of Jewish holidays, which are now done, by the way, you get a lot of time to talk to people, and you look for new people to talk to, and you look to people who you haven't spoken to in forever. A lot of the people in the Jewish community, not Republicans. And so many of them were telling me over the weekend, especially on a holiday where you drink a lot, how they have had it with the Democrat Party. But they feel politically homeless. They feel like the Democrat Party has left them. This week, we had Simchas Torah. Simchas Torah is when you celebrate completing the 5 books of Moses, and everybody comes to the synagogue, and you have a whole bunch of drinks, and you dance with the Torahs, and you dance around, and there's a whole bunch of food. There was like 400 or 500 people at the celebration I was at. It was awesome. It was incredible. It was wonderful. But I was talking with a lot of people, and a lot of people said, I don't know what to do politically, because I went to a different synagogue, and that synagogue is now so far to the left, they're almost basically pro-Hamas and not pro-Israel anymore. They said, my synagogue has become a recruiting area for the Democrat Party, and not the Democrat Party I grew up with, but the far-left Democrat Party. The reason so many people were at my synagogue is because I said we're going to be pro-Israel, and we're going to do all the stuff a Jewish synagogue does, all the traditional stuff. You remember when they came out with New Coke? Little before my time, but New Coke. Everybody wanted old Coke back, right? Always the real thing. That's where that marketing strategy came from. We're giving you the real thing. We're giving you the real Coke. Well, people know the difference between real and fake. This stuff that we're seeing here, this controversy that Politico is making of it, do I think it's mainstream? No. But if you look at a whole bunch of idiot young people's text threads, there's going to be some bad stuff in it. There's going to be some memes in it. Am I defending this behavior? No. Do I think that the stuff they said was good? Absolutely not. But I think Politico thinks some things are racism when actually they're making fun of the wrong race. I think that Politico doesn't even understand half the references to what they're reading and probably had to have their kids or teenagers or whoever translate this thing for them. What do I say to my kids all the time? If they share a meme with me that I think is slightly off color, I say, delete that from your phone, delete that from the text, delete that from a thread, delete that from anywhere you posted it, because one day, one of the people in that thread may decide to screw you and post that thing online, and it will ruin your reputation forever, forever, forever. Don't ever post that. Don't ever write anything like that. Don't ever do anything like that. Apparently, these kids didn't have parents like me to caution their children about it. But what this thread shows me is something far, far worse. The Groyper movement, the Nick Fuentes people. That is now seeped into the regular conversation of mainstream Republicans like the young Republicans. And we need to say, no, we're not tolerating this nonsense anymore. We're not tolerating the anti-Semitic. They're not even jokes. They're just comments. We're not tolerating racism. We're not doing any of this because then we're no different from the left, who every time we see their text messages, they're talking about killing Republicans and killing their kids like Jay Jones. That guy should have pulled out of the race already. But instead, what does the media do? What does the left do with the Virginia AG candidate? We have to protect him because he's one of our own. No, Nick Fuentes is not one of our own. The Groypers, if you don't know what that means, they're the frog people that like to post all this far-right insanity. No, you have to say, your big tent does have walls, and here's where it ends. We don't want this insanity in the party. I think everybody who is on this chat, hey, guys, you were stupid. I think you're going to have to resign if you want to give the young Republicans any credibility whatsoever. But I think that the Republican Party also has to look at this and say, no, we're not putting up with this. Here's where we draw the line. You want to say you have a big tent? Great. That means you can have me and people who disagree with me in the tent. It doesn't mean you can tolerate things just because you go, well, at least they vote for Trump. Well, at least they vote for Republicans, because that's how you get the Democrat Party, where they embraced all this. Oh, we don't like Jews, and we like illegal aliens, and we don't like cops. And they embraced it and embraced it and embraced it and chased everybody out. How'd they chase everybody out? Donald Trump was the moderate candidate in 2024. Kamala Harris was the far-left lunatic. Donald Trump was the moderate candidate, pushing 80-20 issues, 80-20 solutions. We don't want our party becoming a radical party, because if we become a radical party, everybody will leave our party to go find something else. This has been so evident since I went offline and I was catching up like Johnny Five, looking for input the past few days. What I miss. People in our party have completely gone off the rails on the far right. Tucker Carlson, it just seems like he wants to undermine America. It seems like he wants to destroy MAGA. It's always divisive over on his podcast. You want to know how crazy it's gotten? Marjorie Taylor Greene is now the new darling of the left. Why? Because she is literally bashing Donald Trump and Republicans all the time over health care. And rather than saying, hey, let's make a solution on this, or hey, I want to address this, or hey, President Trump, whose gear I wore every minute of every day the last X amount of years, can we talk about this? Hey, Mike Johnson, can we talk about this? She sees her moment in the sun. Let me get some PR by going on CNN, by going on MSNBC, by going on all these different shows, by having Whoopi Goldberg talk about me on The View. Let's do this. And in the process, she is bashing Donald Trump constantly. And here's something else. Does her vote matter at all? Is the problem with the shutdown in the House of Representatives? No. She is just as inconsequential as AOC. The problem is in the Senate. But Marjorie Taylor Greene sees a moment, and she's trying to do it by bashing Donald Trump. There's something I'm very proud of on this show. We always try to call balls and strikes. I just did 10 minutes on our own party having problems. I just did 10 minutes on that. With President Trump, I have been very, very clear how I feel about President Trump. I find him entertaining. I find him funny. I'm so glad he got elected. And you know what? Sometimes I disagree with him on things, and that's okay. But do I do it to raise my own profile? No, never. Because I look at President Trump, and I look at what he's doing in the Middle East, and I look at what he's now doing with Russia and Ukraine, and I look at all the wars he stopped around the world, and I look at how he's trying to make our borders more secure, how he has made our borders more secure, how he's trying to fund the military, how the Democrats are stopping it, and I go, this guy may be the hero we deserve right now. That is what President Trump is. And it's crazy to me. People in the Republican Party won't say, Marjorie Taylor Greene, what the hell? What's going on? I want to hear more people calling her out and saying, no, you don't do that. There's this lie. There's this lie, which I have said before, but I gave it context when I did, which is Democrats never bash each other. Okay, that's not true. They bash you when you aren't 100% loyal and then try to exile you from the party is what they do. Look what they're trying to do to John Fetterman right now. They don't like him very much right now. They will bash you if you step out of line the slightest bit, and they don't need you anymore. They will cut you loose. On our party right now, need to take a serious look at the people like the Candace Owens, the Tucker Carlsons, the Steve Bannons, and go, are you guys just saying this stupid stuff for clicks? Because you're bashing the leader of our party, and I don't get why. Right now, it should be Republicans saying, the Democrats want health care for illegal aliens. End of story. You guys made these crazy plans because you did Obamacare and you were playing the long game and you're giving taxpayer funds to people who are not citizens of this country. There's a guy in my synagogue. His wife is in a different country with the kids right now because he's waiting to get a job over there, and he can't get a job over there because their immigration standards are so strict, and this is a country in Europe, that he hasn't been given a visa to even go there yet. And this is one of the countries which people hold up and go, we should be more like them. We are the only country where you say, yeah, come no matter what, and we'll give you the Social Security, and we'll give you whatever benefits you want. We'll give your kids free schooling, and we'll do all that. Because so many things have been completely warped. Sure, come have a baby in our country and it's a citizen. If I had a baby, that'd be a miracle. But if I go to another country with my wife to have a baby in England, does my kid automatically become an English citizen? We all know where all these things were based in. But right now they've been warped by the Democrats to create this Frankenstein monster of trying to influence elections by bringing people here from other countries, by making sure they are part of the welfare state, by keeping them on the welfare state, so then they're always going to vote for the people who support the welfare state. We should be having that conversation. Instead, Republicans are bashing Donald Trump. They're bashing Mike Johnson. They're bashing Republicans. What are you doing? We are winning right now. Later in the show, I have audio showing how the polling is actually going against the Democrats, and you've got Republicans bashing the Republicans right now, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory as always. It's absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But I look around at our party, at what's happening to our party, and this is one of the challenges with a big tent. Where are the walls of that big tent, and where do you draw the lines on the big tent? Now, you may disagree with me on this. You may 100% disagree with me on this, but then I want to know what your line is. What is it? Supporting Hamas? Bashing President Trump? Saying, yeah, let's give the illegal aliens health care? What's your line? Where do you say the tent is big enough, but it stops here? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Because as I see it, AOC is saying the same stuff as Marjorie Taylor Greene when it comes to health care. AOC said she would only vote to reopen the government if President Donald Trump signed an extension of Obamacare subsidies. Oh, you mean the thing that tripled the price of my health care? The thing that cost me my plan, my doctor, and everything else? Great, wonderful, fantastic. Why? So you could protect the illegal aliens? AOC and Marjorie Taylor Greene are saying similar things. Horseshoe theory in action right now. It's absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts. You got Whoopi Goldberg praising Marjorie Taylor Greene because she's bashing Donald Trump. It's insane. The whole world's upside down and backwards right now. And meanwhile, you've got Chuck Schumer calling on Americans to forcefully rise up against Trump over Letitia James' indictment. This is what we're doing now? This is what we're doing right now. So you say you're not the party of violence, but guess what? Yeah, we are the party of violence. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. If the Republicans do not want to become the Democrats, then you have to decide what your lines are. What we want in our party, what we don't want in our party. For example, I was skeptical of the RFK Juniors of the world. I really was. I like a lot of the stuff he's doing. I disagree with some of the stuff that he's doing. But that's a discussion to be had. I've never questioned whether or not he supports terrorists. I never questioned whether or not he wants open borders or weak security, or if he went against President Trump, anything of that nature. And yet that's what we're doing with Marjorie Taylor Greene right now. It's absolutely crazy. I want to know what your lines are. Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Dan in Tacoma. Dan, what's up?
Hey, these Washington State sheeple, they need to be slaughtered because they need to pay for all these poor illegal aliens, medical and having children. I mean, they're giving $1 away per gallon and putting it in the general fund for our government to just foolishly waste. Why shouldn't they do that also?
Well, I don't think we should talk about slaughtering anybody, but if you're talking about the amount of money we spend on these kind of free giveaways, especially including money like the Climate Commitment Act, which is jacking up our gas prices by so much money, and that money is being funneled into nonprofits, which is not actually going to fix the environment. Yeah, I agree with you. And what are we spending other money on? I saw Oregon this week is now doubling down on giving health care to illegal aliens with billions of dollars. Billions of dollars. That makes no sense whatsoever. Dan, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Leonard in Shoreline. Leonard, what's going on?
Oh, nothing much. Regarding what you asked about AOC, why she wants the government reopen, so she can give illegal aliens protection, basically. And if she allows more illegal immigrants into the country, they'll get government-backed phones, prepaid debit cards, money, you name it.
That's exactly what they're doing. That's what they're doing right now, Leonard. They're getting all that kind of stuff. Just look here in Washington. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell is being heralded as a person who stands against anti-Semitism and stands for public safety. What have these people been drinking? We'll give you all the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Somebody sent me a flyer for an event today that's being run by our local chapter of the ADL. The headline of it is Hope Over Hate, Building Safe Communities, Understanding Anti-Semitism and Hate. And apparently it's happening this weekend. And who is the main speaker being advertised for building safe communities and understanding anti-Semitism? Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell. Hang on. This guy who said this at a debate last week is the guy you think is about building safe communities.
Mayor Harrell, I'm going to go back to that repeat offender question. If somebody has offended 6, 7, 8 times, even if it's a minor offense, but they continue to fail to turn their life around, at what point do you balance public safety to giving this person, some accountability? What is that balance?
So let me make something very clear. I was the one that sponsored the ban the box legislation when everyone opposed it because the criminal system has had a disparate impact on black and brown communities. Let me lead with that. So when this person is committing 6 or 7 crimes, I don't know his or her story. Maybe they were abused as a child. Maybe they're hungry. So my remedy is to find their life story to see how we could help first. I have no desire to put them in jail.
Yep, let's not put anybody in jail. Let's sit down. Let's do a little kumbaya. Let's give everybody a little coffee, maybe some donuts, maybe some puppies with the prolific offenders who are responsible for the majority of crime here in Seattle. That's who you're highlighting for public safety? Let's see how safe Seattle is. Hang on a second here. Let's just scroll on over to Como News for a second. An 88-year-old woman was hospitalized after a brutal attack on her back porch in South Seattle on Monday night. The woman was cleaning household items at her home on the 9900 block avenue of 64th Avenue South when a man approached, demanding her belongings. After she refused, the man assaulted her repeatedly, dragged her into her garage where the attack continued, then stole her personal property and fled the scene. Wonderful. Sweet. Nice. So safe. So safe. Hang on. What else? You know what? That was Monday. What else we got around here? Come on news. A 20-year-old man was fatally shot in the Northgate neighborhood on Wednesday evening. SPD said shortly at around 4:50 p.m. It received reports of a shooting on the 2100 block of Northgate Way. Police arrived, found a man in the parking lot of a hotel suffering from a gunshot wound to the chest. Come to Seattle. Stay at a hotel, get shot in the chest. You get a bullet to take home with you as a souvenir. That's how safe our city is. We know this. When they say violent crime is down, it's not down. When they say crime is down, it's not down. Many things aren't even being reported anymore. And remember when they were crowing about how little gun violence we had this year and how few homicides we had this year, and then they started spiking back up. Tell me again how Bruce Harrell's about public safety. Then you want to tell me he's a poster child for stopping anti-Semitism? Are you kidding me? This is the guy who turned over the streets of Seattle for 2 years to Hamasniks. For 2 years. This is the same guy who let them have the run of the University of Washington campus. His alma mater didn't say anything. Not one thing. Well, the violent anti-Semitic encampment was on his campus. And now you have the ADL having an event saying that this is how we build safe communities with Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell. You know, the big problem is a lot of people around here are saying, well, he's the lesser of two evils. Yeah, but if you're the lesser of two evils, you're still evil. Do I think Bruce Harrell is evil? No, I think he's a boob. I think he's been hit in the head too many times playing football. And unfortunately, we don't have a good choice for mayor. But you know what? If you want to endorse Bruce Harrell, you know what you should have done instead? You should have said, if you want our endorsement, we don't want you to fill out some lame questionnaire, which every candidate has to fill out. You have a track record, and you haven't done this, and this. We want a commitment from you. And unfortunately, too many organizations, too many political groups just go, it's him or the socialist. It's him or the socialist. We have no choice. You know how many people yelled at me over the weekend of the fact that I won't endorse Bruce Harrell? And how, guys, you want to vote for Bruce Harrell? Go ahead and vote for Bruce Harrell. You know what you're getting. Is it good? No. Later in the show today, Mike and I are going to do our recommendations, our recommendations for the voters guide. And what do we have, Mike? 3 people we like? 3. Out of everybody running for office, we have 3 we legitimately like. You know how we got here? Voting for the lesser of two evils. every time. Settling for second best, settling for third best, settling for 10th best, settling for 20th best. That's how you get here, where you're just like, what's worse, far left or the farther left? That's how you get to this place. And how's our city looking? Are things getting better around here? Are they getting worse? Are they staying the same? I would argue they got slightly better because there's no autonomous zone downtown. That's a really, really, really low bar. Still seeing the homeless all over the place. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's up?
A lot of things. First, I want to tell you, I draw the line in politics at supporting terrorism or other forms of hate. And it's hard for me to be a Democrat right now because, this is the bunch that will not tell Hamas to lay down their arms and stand behind our commander-in-chief at a time of literally war. This is a bunch that, quite frankly, doesn't respect the courageous leadership of Bibi Netanyahu and the Israeli Air Force in taking out the Iranian nuclear threat. I can go on and on and on. And frankly, I got to tell you, closer to home, you can talk about Bruce Harrell not strong enough on anti-Semitism. I agree with you that we need Sunday people who listen to this show who are going to raise the issue, but we also need other Democrats to condemn what is going on at UW, what is going on around this country, and make clear that there should be no place for hate, period.
Yeah, that should be the case. But unfortunately, people here just roll over and go, well, he's the lesser of two evils, so let's endorse him. Let's vote for him. Unfortunately, that's the case, which is why they're having an event with Bruce Harrell. Of all the people you could have picked, of all the people they could have picked out here, you know who you could have picked?
I agree.
Yeah, you know who you could have picked? Jared Neuenhouse. Could have picked Jared Neuenhouse. You want to talk about public safety and fighting anti-Semitism? Instead, they picked Bruce Harrell. Thanks for the call, Joe. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Sandy in Renton. Sandy, what's up?
Yeah, hey, I saw a video, I saw it first last night and then again this morning of some gal in Hillsboro, Oregon that took it upon herself to entrap the ICE agents with her vehicle and encourage her neighbors to do the same. And she filmed it and posted it on her online chat line, and nothing has happened to her.
It sounds pretty illegal, but I haven't seen this video. So, Sandy, I'll tell you what, my email, ari@kvi.com. That's ari@kvi.com. Send it on over to me so I can take a look at it. And if necessary, contact the appropriate authorities. Appreciate the tip. Appreciate the call. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, the government apparently still shut down. My prediction is it's going to be shut down for a very, very, very long time, but to the Democrats' detriment. This may put them in bad shape for 2026. We'll tell you why when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Before the shutdown, I said what's going to determine who wins is the polling. Who do Americans blame more for the shutdown? Right now, it hasn't moved that much because the Democrats haven't made their case to the American public about why it's the Republicans' fault. They keep screaming about health care, and then Republicans go, you want to give health care to illegal aliens. It's that simple. They didn't think about this. They didn't gear up for this fight. They think just demonizing Trump and demonizing Republicans isn't going to work. It's not working. How do I know this? What does the polling show? Even CNN is forced to admit this ain't looking good for the Democrats. Give a listen.
Well, we were looking at the Democrats with a very clear shot of taking control of the U.S. House of Representatives, according to the Kalshi prediction market odds. We saw them in an 83% chance. But those odds have gone plummeting down. Now we're talking about just a 63% chance, while the GOP's chances up like a rocket, up like gold, up from 17% to now a 37% chance.
Now, that's not huge, by the way. You're still talking about 37% on the GOP side and 60-some-odd% on the Democrat side. But that means the Democrats are falling while the GOP is rising. And that's what Democrats should be scared of right now. They should also be scared of John Fetterman. He's spilling the tea on everybody. This was him at a News Nation panel last night.
That's why shutting the government is really what the Democratic Party wants to do. And I follow country, then party. And it's the wrong thing for the country in a period of chaos. I refuse to vote to shut our government down. I absolutely would love to have... I would love to have a conversation about extending the tax credits for health care. Absolutely. But I would remind everybody, too, this was designed by the Democratic Party to expire at the end of the year. This is not something taken by the Republicans. They were designed to expire. Now let's have a conversation to extend it and not shut our government down.
Exactly. Let's have the conversation. Today at 4:30, we have Representative Lauren Davis coming on the show. She wrote a great op-ed for the Seattle Times talking about how she has rethought some of her positions regarding juvenile crime and juvenile incarceration. Great op-ed. And we're going to have her on the show, and she's a Democrat, to discuss, okay, what's the new path forward? What's the new direction forward? John Fetterman, always willing to have those conversations. You know, the ladies of The View, though, if you ask them, they say Republicans don't even want to have the conversation. In fact, they're scared to come on their show.
I think that we should have more Republicans on the show, but they don't want to come on. They're scared of us. It's like Marjorie Taylor Greene says that she finds the Republican men afraid of powerful women. Well, that may be true of all the political persuasions. But if they would come on this show, and they can explain to us what they're trying to do to this country.
Okay. Can we be real about this? It was kind of funny watching everybody on the Republican side of the aisle dunk on them, going, I'll come on the show. I'll come on the show. Hey, I'll say it right now. I will happily go on The View. I would love to meet Whoopi Goldberg and tell her that I loved her on Star Trek, but I disagree with everything politically that she says. The truth is, the Democrats, if they want, The View, if they want to right now, I bet you if the ladies of The View invited on Donald Trump right now, he would go. I bet you if the ladies of The View invited on Mike Johnson right now, he would go. I bet you they invited Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz has been before. I bet you if you invite any of them, they will go. They don't actually want to have the conversation. Because right now, we'll just say, what's their talking point? We want health care for everybody. No, you want health care for illegal aliens. No, that's not true. And then they'll get blown out of the water because those ladies are more of a ready, fire, aim crew. That's why they had so many lawyers telling them to retract statements, Sonny Hostin. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. In fact, wait a second. This clip kind of resurfaced. This was pretty fun. So what happens? What was it? Back in 2024, the ladies of The View said that if President Trump was able to free the hostages, this was Alyssa Farah, if he was able to free the hostages, she'd wear a MAGA hat. Hey, Mike, I've been gone a few days. I know for the Jewish holidays. Is there a clip going viral of Alyssa Farah possibly wearing a MAGA hat anywhere?
How about no?
No, I didn't think there was. I haven't seen that one out yet.
Actually, that's not entirely true, Ari. I've seen a number of AI ones where it's like the hat goes on the head and then the tears start.
Yeah.
But that is a fake.
Okay, just so you guys don't think I'm making this up, this is what she said in December.
My point when I say I'm not going to be apocalyptic, it's not changing a tune. It's not making every single thing a 5-alarm fire.
Yeah.
If he does good, if he gets the Israeli hostages out, I promise I will wear a MAGA hat for one day on the show and say, thank you
Please
for
don't do
doing
that.
it.
Yeah.
And then she'll knock it right off my head. But
Please
like
don't do that.
you have to be able to cheer for wins when they happen and then call out relentlessly the wrongdoing.
Well, okay, so did they cheer for the wins? Did they say kudos to President Trump for getting the hostages out, Mike?
No.
Okay, I know I was gone for a few days, but I didn't see anything about that. By the way, The View is so dumb. They're doing it to their own detriment. What do you think would happen to their ratings if President Trump went on their show and Alyssa Farah put on a MAGA hat to say, I don't like you very much, I don't like your policies, but I made a bet and a deal's a deal. Let's do it. Everybody in the world would see that clip on social media. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Robert in Kitsap. Robert, what's up?
Hey, Ari. I was just thinking about a couple segments ago. You were asking what should the Republican Party do to unify ourselves. And I think it's fiscal responsibility across the board. I think we stop talking about the things that get everybody all fired up and this and that. It's the fact that the checkbook isn't working. And that's where we can you can't argue numbers. Numbers tell the story. And then just say, look, I know it's not good for you or it's great for you. It's numbers.
You know,
and
that's a great
down
point.
To a very simple thing. I don't want to fight with you. I can't afford to feed you right now. I can't afford to, I had to make, macaroni and cheese and ramen noodle choices in my own life. Why can't the rest of America do the same?
You know, that's a great point. You know what the problem with that is, though? Is that you and I can have that conversation, and I think anybody who's not in public office can have that conversation. The problem is once you get into public office, what you're worried about is bringing home the bacon for your district. And I think what we have seen, and we saw this with Doge. Doge found what? $650 billion in cuts, and they've done $9 billion in rescissions. Because at the end of the day, that's your problem.
Well, and I agree. We go back to term limits. We go back to if you want to serve the American people, you get a limited time to do it. And I believe Congress, guess what? I'm a veteran myself. You know whose health care they should be getting? They should be getting veterans' health care, the same one that I get. And guess what the difference in the VA would be if the congressman had to go the same place I did.
Yeah, or think about this. What if you said instead, hey, everybody in the VA gets the same thing Congress gets? Wouldn't we have more people signing up to join the military?
Amen. That would be outstanding.
See, you got to go. You got to go glass half full, Robert, not glass half empty.
No, brother, I live in the real world, down here with the little people. So I can't go there.
Well, here's the thing. They're never – so let's do the real world comparison. They're never going to go down, but you would go up. So maybe that's the opportunity to go. Robert, thank you for your comments. Great thoughts, great calls. Thank you for your service. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. Oh, I am so happy for this next caller. Nothing like welcoming me back with my friend Alma, my darling. How have you been? I've missed you this month.
Oh, that was such a beautiful introduction. Fine, and I'm glad you're back.
Oh, thank you.
I miss you too.
Thank you. What's on your mind? Because I know you're about to yell at me for something. What'd I do today?
CNN is a conservative station now, so whatever they say, it's a lot of conservative. I don't believe them.
Wait a second, Alma. You think
know
that?
Who's responsible?
What?
You know who's responsible for the shutdown? They got the White House, they got the Senate, they got the House. They're responsible.
Well, Alma, they only have 53 votes in the Senate. You need 60 to pass anything. So who are the other 7?
Vice versa with the Democrats. Democrats are not trying to get. I wish I would have listened. Could tell you they're not trying to give health care to aliens. That's not true.
They've admitted it, Alma. They've admitted it before. They flat out admitted it. Whatever they're saying for the sound bites now is not true.
Back in the day. No. No, you know I'm telling the truth. And Trump ain't freed nobody. He killed a lot of people over there.
What do you? He just got back. Okay, Alma, he just got back the hostages from Hamas. Alma, give the man a little bit of credit. A little bit.
I can't give you credit, but let me ask you, I'm going to ask you one question. How can you still feel good about this man who lies all the time, who won't let that Epstein file come to light? How can you still act like he's a god?
Well, I don't act like he. Alma, I only got one god, okay? I like him a lot. I only got one god. I just spent the whole month doing things for that one god, okay? I will tell you that. You know that, right? But I will say here, he just brought home all the hostages that Joe Biden and that Kamala Harris that the Democrats weren't able to do.
Oh, you give Joe Biden some credit. Joe Biden, he wouldn't have brought home nobody. But I'm gonna tell you, he killed more people than he brought home.
Well, Alma, we're gonna have to agree to disagree on this one, but I appreciate the call. It's so good to hear your voice. God bless you. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues, including how new surveys are showing that Gen Z is bailing on the trans movement. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. I have long argued that the trans movement is social contagion, where kids are doing it because it's popular, or kids are doing it because they see they get the perks, they get the special treatment, whatever the case may be. And now it looks like there might be some data to back it up, because it seems like it's falling out of trendy favor. So according to a new survey, which is based on information from the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, as well as surveys from colleges across the U.S., the number of Americans identifying, number of young Americans of Gen Z identifying as transgender or queer has declined rapidly in recent years. According to the survey, which polled over 60,000 students in 2025, it found that just 3.6% of U.S. undergrads identified as a gender that is neither male nor female. That's down from 5.2% in 2024 and 6.8% in 2023. This is fascinating to read. There's a guy named Ari Hoffman who wrote a report for the Center for Heterodox Social Science, and he says, in other words, the share of trans-identified students has effectively halved in just 2 years. At Andover Phillips Academy in Boston, 9.2% of its students identified as neither male nor female in 2023. In 2025, that number was just 3%. At Brown University, just 2.6% of students identified as such in 2025, while that number was 5% in 2022 and 2023. Looking at the data that includes sexual orientation, Kaufman noted that the data has shown that heterosexuality has rebounded by around 10 points since 2023. Quote, interestingly, when the trans and queer trends were at their peak, freshmen were more likely to be non-conforming in their gender and sexuality than seniors. Now that BTQ, bisexual, trans, queer, or questioning identification is in decline, the reverse is true. Younger students are less BTQ than older students in their colleges. This is a sign that the fashions themselves are changing. He said it could be explained in part by improved mental health, but not fully. He said that political and cultural beliefs have remained stable through the 2020s among students surveyed, and thus were not a factor. So it's not a matter of Trump getting elected or anything else. It's that this isn't trendy anymore. And people aren't doing it because it's trendy anymore. Instead, they're saying no more of this. And this is fascinating. It's not correlated to Donald Trump winning the election. It's not correlated to people looking at the Republican Party as the cool party and the Democrats as the lame party. Just like ripped jeans, it's just something that's going out of style. Like Tamagotchis or snap bracelets or Rubik's Cubes or anything else like that. This is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And it completely destroys the argument that it's not social contagion. We see that it is, especially among girls. You ever see the movie Josie and the Pussycats? I know. This is going to be ridiculous. Ari, the guy who likes to blow up movies like Josie and the Pussycats? Yes. It is one of the most ridiculous movies. Yes, based on the Archie Comics characters. But what it's about is subliminal advertising in movies, TV shows, music, and pop culture. It's really funny how quickly everything changes. It's a great parody movie. If you haven't seen it and you got the stomach for that, go ahead and watch it and you'll laugh a little bit because of how ridiculous it is. But that's what we're talking about here. Social contagion. And now it's in decline because it's not trendy anymore. Like any other fad, it just goes away. But how many kids are mutilated for life because of a fad? How many, like this is something that is crazy. That just because it was trendy for a little while, now all of a sudden it's not trendy anymore. And now it's going bye-bye. And how many people based policy on this? And how many kids have had life-altering surgeries that can never be reversed because of a fad? We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss, including how there is no one to vote for this cycle. I've got 3 picks, maybe. We'll tell you who they are when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, a local Seattle outlet is telling you how not to get arrested if you riot with ICE. And Washington is suing the EPA because it's a day that ends in Y. But before we get to anything else, I saw this story. Mike found it for me over on Como News. A man who was under supervision by the Washington Department of Corrections has been charged with murder after a deadly crash that happened during a brief chase with a sheriff deputy in Pierce County. Hang on. How many things that we talk about normally on this show are just in that opening sentence? So Democrats want to get rid of police pursuits, right? So don't chase after the murderer who's running away from the police. Sounds like a prolific offender to me, and killed somebody? Let's read the rest of this. Charging documents allege that Donald Wayne Ronan, 47 of Forks, admitted to speeding away from a pursuing deputy because he didn't want to go back to prison. Quote, Ronan's demeanor appeared as if he did not care and did not believe it was his fault. A Washington State Patrol trooper wrote in an arrest report. Ronan started something along the lines of, "You guys should not have chased me. I told him I was shocked by the lack of accountability." Why would a prolific offender criminal think that the police shouldn't be chasing him? Because they're entitled. Because they're entitled. And what, you think they all got the memo? You think all criminals are watching the news or listening to the Ari Hoffman Show? That, oh, now we pursue criminals again? No. They knew there was a get-out-of-jail-free card because the Democrats passed a law that had no police pursuits anymore. And that's how you get a situation like this one. According to investigators, a Pierce County deputy attempted to stop Ronan's car near 112th Street and Steele Street in Parkland around 9:30 a.m. Wednesday. Immediately upon turning on his lights, the deputy saw Ronan's Chrysler 300 sedan speed eastbound on 112th toward Ainsworth Avenue South. Seconds later, Ronan's car blew through a red light at Ainsworth Avenue and T-boned a silver Toyota Corolla that was in the intersection. The 20-year-old female driver of the Toyota was killed on impact. Police allege Ronan ran away from the crash scene and was arrested by a deputy who chased him down. When questioned by Washington State Patrol, Ronan admitted to running from the crash, stated he had repeatedly violated the terms of his community custody supervision. Can we stop for a second? How good is the supervision if you repeatedly violated the community custody terms? The supervision is garbage. This is Washington's version of parole, by the way, which made him fearful he would be sent back to prison for 2 years. 2 passengers in Ronan's vehicle were injured and taken to the hospital for treatment. Investigators said they found drug paraphernalia. Okay, guys, who's supervising these guys? Who's supervising these guys? They found it in the car after a trooper believed Ronan was under the influence of methamphetamine after the crash. Hang on a second. So he's violating all the terms of his parole. He's on drugs, and now he's fleeing from police. Wow, you've just got like the trifecta right there. Pierce County prosecutors filed an 8-count complaint against Ronan Thursday morning with charges including murder in the second degree, vehicular homicide, failure to remain in an accident resulting in death, vehicular assault DUI, failure to remain at injury accident, attempting to elude pursuing police vehicle, escape from community custody, reckless driving. Ronan is expected in court at 1:30 today. We will check in because apparently the court proceedings already happened, and we will see what happened to this guy. What do you want to bet they released him? What, you think Pierce County actually released this guy, or you think they held on to him? They haven't released the identity of the woman who was killed yet. So this guy had been the subject of 3 separate warrants for failing to report to community custody since being released from prison in May. I got a question. After the first one, shouldn't you go arrest the guy? You have his address. Why didn't you go after the first time or the second time? His most recent warrant was issued on September 2nd. His most recent stint in prison was for a 2023 conviction of possession of a stolen vehicle and identity theft from King County. Wait a minute. In 2023, when stealing cars went through the roof because Democrats banned police pursuits, he's one of the few guys that actually got arrested for it? How does that actually happen? Insane. You want these policies to change? You got to elect new people if you want these policies to change. But unfortunately, there are so few people worth electing around here. I'm just appalled by how bad the candidates actually are this election cycle. I don't know if you know about the fun that happened with the Great Debate, Seattle's Great Debate. This was something that was founded years ago. But basically, it's a whole day of debating amongst candidates. Our friend Andrea Suarez was one of the moderators this year. It's nonpartisan. They invite everybody. But lefty candidate in Seattle, after lefty candidate in Seattle, after lefty candidate in Seattle, pulled out of the debate. Katie Wilson was announced that she wasn't coming to the debate, and instead, Bruce Harrell got an hour with the moderators. Now, if I'm Katie Wilson, you know what I'm probably thinking to myself? How many people are watching the Great Debate after, Mike, you said this right before I went offline for the holidays. Another debate with these guys? How many have there been?
Another one.
Right. Nobody's really even watching these things anymore unless somebody like me happens to get a clip of them posted online and it goes viral for, I don't know, the mayor of Seattle saying that he wants to get to know public offenders as opposed to arresting them. So they're probably thinking to themselves, you know what? If we just let Harold talk, he'll hang himself. He'll basically say something so dumb, it'll go viral again. Katie Wilson has nothing to gain by showing up to the debate. But here's something else. She wasn't the only one. Alexis Mercedes Rink didn't show up, and Erica Evans didn't show up. Erica Evans is running for Seattle City Attorney against Ann Davidson. Now, I haven't been thrilled with Ann recently. For example, she's now going after the Trump administration on behalf of Seattle for trying to protect illegal aliens. It's crazy stuff. Now, mind you, you may say the city attorney has to do what Seattle wants to do, what the mayor wants to do. Not technically true, but okay, you want to do that interpretation? Send out a deputy. Don't be the face of it. Send out a deputy, but you're hoping that's going to score points with the left. Instead, you're supposed to be the public safety candidate, and it looks like you're supporting illegal aliens. It makes no sense. But here you go. Now Erica Evans is in trouble. Erica Evans was absolutely clobbering Ann Davidson in the primary. And now this report that I'm doing with Jonathan Cho, Seattle City Attorney candidate Erica Evans, is being called a liar after bailing on one of the most anticipated political debates of the year. We obtained emails showing that Evans was clearly telling organizers she could not participate in the Great Debate over the weekend because of a wedding. However, instead of posting pictures of the wedding, of a selfie of, look how nice I look, I'm going to a wedding, she posted pictures with Pramila Jayapal and Nick Brown at a campaign fundraiser at the same time. They sent an email to Julius Caesar Robinson, who's one of the debate organizers. Hi, Julius. Erica is scheduled to attend a wedding on this date. Would it be possible to move the Seattle City Attorney's debate start time to 11 a.m.? That way, Erica could attend the debate and make it just in time to the wedding. Instead of being at a wedding, she was seen at her own campaign kickoff event. And the Great Debate organizer said Evans never told them anything about it. Is this a little insider baseball? Perhaps. But this is the person you want as Seattle City Attorney who can't keep their commitments straight, or worse yet, is lying about their commitments? I reached out to Evans' campaign. Jonathan Cho reached out to Evans' campaign. Radio silence, not one word. Hey, if 90% of the job is showing up, at least Ann Davidson actually showed up. If Evans can't even manage a campaign calendar, how can she be expected to handle one of the most demanding schedules of Seattle City Attorney, or worse, did she mislead organizers and avoid a tough debate on her far-left policies? Voters want to know. Most people don't even know who Erica Evans is. She's trying to keep it low-key and keep all the spotlight on the mayoral race because she hopes that the lefties will just vote her in here in Seattle for Seattle City Attorney. What, you think she's going to prosecute crime? Of course she's not. So, one endorsement we're going to do, I wish I had more gusto with this endorsement, is Ann Davidson. I wish I had more gusto for it. She's been, I'd say, chetzi, as we say in my world, half and half, where we like some of the stuff and then we really don't like some of the other stuff, but the alternative is far, far worse. Now, you may say, Ari, why aren't you endorsing Bruce Harrell? Because I don't see a difference. I legit don't see a difference between him and Katie Wilson. And so many of you are going, Ari, you're crazy. She's a devout socialist. She's backed by CARE. Come on, how can you not see a difference? As I've said many, many times at this point, he is trying to be her. For 2 years, he let the Hamasniks have the run of the city. He let them have the run of the University of Washington campus, didn't say a word about it, even though he can't shut up about his alma mater, University of Washington. This is a guy who didn't do anything to protect the Jewish community during the Macklemore concert, where you had a whole bunch of Hamas supporters raising money for them in the Jewish neighborhood on the Sabbath. This is a guy who wants to let prolific offenders get to know him better. This is a guy who doesn't want to enforce crime. This is a guy who's just comfortable moving homeless encampment to homeless encampment to homeless encampment to homeless encampment to homeless encampment rather than actually cleaning anything up. We're back to what? Seattle in 2018, 2019 when he was on the Seattle City Council. Since he's been elected to the Seattle City Council and mayor, Seattle has seen a 56% increase in homelessness. And he refuses to do an audit of Homeless Inc. The one time he thought about taking money away from the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program, the LEAD program, they shut him down right away. He never brought it up ever again. So I wonder if that was just a, well, I'm going to try, and then they say no. Bruce Harrell likes the idea of being mayor. He doesn't like actually doing the job of mayor. You say, oh, he's so much better than Katie Wilson? Prove it. Phone lines are open. Give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And tell me why he's better, because I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I just don't. Other people were endorsing for real, though. Jared Neuenhuis for Bellevue City Council. Jared Neuenhuis is the real deal. He's about public safety. He's pro-business. He's against anti-Semitism. He speaks out on it anytime he gets. He's a genuinely nice guy. Just a great all-around guy. 100% if you live in Bellevue, you should be voting for Jared Neuenhuis. And I'll tell you something else. He's very, very accessible. If you have an issue, he will come out and address that issue, which is so rare these days. Jared Neuenhuis for Bellevue City Council. Here's another one for you, Seattle City Council. I'm concerned about her chances, but every time I talk to Rachel Savage, I like her more and more and more. I'm concerned about if she's going to get clobbered or not, but that doesn't mean don't vote for her. I think if anything, that means get out the vote for her. Rachel Savage is somebody who, she didn't leave the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left her, and as a business owner in Capitol Hill, imagine the hell she's had to endure. From COVID to autonomous zones to all the riots, you name it. And she says enough is enough. She speaks our language. Alexis Mercedes Rink is literally one of the people who just raised taxes on Seattleites again, claiming it's for public safety. And yet, I don't see any more public safety. In fact, I see quite the opposite. I just see things are less affordable. And they say it's about public safety. It's not. It's not. Other people were supporting. Chad Magendas for the State House, 5th Legislative District. He's great. You got to vote for him. And there's a possibility that it may actually move the needle in the House. Michelle Caldier, State Senate, 26th Legislative District. You got to vote for her. Kevin Schilling, 33rd Legislative District. We love Kevin Schilling, and he's a Democrat. I never want to hear again, oh, you just like Republicans. You just hate people because they're Democrats. I'm literally endorsing a Democrat and telling you we love Kevin Schilling on this show. He always comes on when we ask him, always wants to have the conversation, and he's all about public safety. All about public safety. Are there things we disagree on? Of course. But what's better in this case? And he's not a Democrat I have to hold my nose at going, he's the lesser of two evils. No, he's a good guy. He's a decent guy, and he believes in public safety. He went head-to-head with King County. He went head-to-head with Dow Constantine. He took his case all the way to the courts to make sure Burien would be safe. Kevin Schilling, Washington State House, 33rd Legislative District. And then Peter Kwan. Peter Kwan for SeaTac City Council. I love Peter Kwan. Such a nice guy to have on the show, but also the pizza nights. The fact that it was so funny to me, I was reading the voter's guide, Mike. I didn't tell you about this. So I did tell Mike this. I saw the voter's guide at my in-laws' house, and I was so mad I lit it on fire. I was so mad about this thing. It's awful. But I love how other candidates are referencing Peter Kwan's pizza nights. Other candidates wrote in the booklet, I want to do what Peter Kwan does and have the pizza nights after city council. What a nice thing to do. Accessible. Wow. A representative always showing up for his district. Crazy stuff. I know Mike fully supports Peter Kwan.
Yeah, he's my dude.
He's your dude. Okay. Here's another one for you. Mitch Green, Federal Way Municipal Court Position 2. We don't pay enough attention to judges. We don't pay enough attention to judges. And we said last election cycle that we were going to take a more active interest in judges. Mitch Green, Federal Way Municipal Court Position 2. That's the guy you got to go for. I know him personally. Good guy. I've had beers. I've had scotches with him. Good guy. That's a guy who's our kind of guy. And you got to vote for a guy like that. Aside from that, Mike, Anybody else I'm missing? Look, you know what? I make mistakes, right? I do. But is there anybody I'm missing off that list?
You plead guilty.
Two flashes mean no.
Exactly. Now, if you think I missed somebody, or want me to consider somebody, I don't see every race. I see what's in my voters pamphlet, and I know the people I know. If you think I missed somebody, you email me, ari@kvi.com. That's ari@kvi.com, and say, Ari, have you considered this candidate? And put candidate in the subject line so I look at it right away, okay? And I will read them on air and say yes, no, the other thing. You can always text the show, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And we are more than happy to talk about other candidates. I'm one guy. There's a lot of races. There's a lot to look at.
Well, and a lot of districts that we're not in.
Right.
Also, a lot of races we don't see. In addition to that challenge, Ari, I'd like to put out a Big Mike's mail call challenge as well, because now that it's election season again, I'm getting all of the mail again, all of the anti-Kevin Schilling mailers. I'm getting anti-Peter Kwan mailers.
Who doesn't like Peter Kwan?
I know.
He gives you free pizza.
Exactly. So if you find a ad that's particularly provocative in the way that's phrased, it's like, MAGA Republicans love Kevin Schilling. If you find something like that, snap a picture of it or take a scan or something and email it to us. You can email me. I'm Mike at Mike at KVI.com, MIKE at KVI.com, and you can find me on all the social medias that you find Ari on as well, because I know the ones that I'm getting. I'm sure you're getting some humdingers as well.
So you know what's so funny, Mike? I've been so busy with the Jewish holidays, my mail is just piling and piling and piling. I'm in that situation, so I got to go through all of them this weekend. And I'd say either tomorrow or Monday, we bring these suckers in. We bring the shredder in, and I don't mean the guy from Ninja Turtles. And we just start going after these. Hey, speaking of pizza, Ninja Turtles. Okay, there we go. See what I did there? Okay. And we just start going through these. Oh, here's a good one. Okay, this one came through on the text line. Neat Grewal.
Sure.
We love Neat Grewal. I got to remember to add her to the list. But see, that's another one that's not on my ballot. So, guys, that's why these things are so important. Neat Greenwald, great call, 425. Excellent one. I forgot that one. I will definitely add her to the list. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend a little bit of time this weekend writing up the full list, because I know ballots are going to be dropping soon if we just got those voters' guides. And we'll put it up on KVI.com. You get it all right there. We'll make sure to put it up at KVI.com, and then we'll go through it line by line. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from James in Tacoma. James, what's up, man?
Yes. Back in May, when the Toronto Blue Jays baseball team came to Seattle, over 60% of the T-Mobile Park crowd were Canadians, Blue Jays fans flocking the stadium. And so the Seattle Mariners this week put a stop to that during the playoffs. They simply refused to sell tickets to those who have a Canadian zip code, Canadian address, phone number. And I know businesses around Seattle have signs supposed to say, we reserve the right to refuse service to anybody. But are the Mariners going a little extreme by simply not selling to people that are not Seattle residents?
Well, let me ask you this. Here's the thing. So, for example, there are people who resell using addresses, resell your tickets, and then what happens is they sell out in 30 seconds, and then it goes through the roof. If the Mariners actually did that, and I didn't see that they did do that, but if they actually did do that, they're trying to make sure that people actually in this zip code or in the zip codes around nearby can get the tickets rather than people out of town. Look, if the Blue Jay fans want to go see the Blue Jays, they can watch the Mariners kick the you-know-what out of them in the first two games, and we'll see what happens in the next couple of games. I got no problem with the Mariners doing something like that. Try and make sure more people can go to the games, given how infrequently the Mariners get to go. But at the same time, if you have proof of that, send it on over, James. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're incorrect. I just haven't seen anything about that. So feel free to email it over to ari@kvi.com. That's ari@kvi.com. I think it would make a fun story. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, a local TV outlet is telling you, giving you instructions, how to riot and not get arrested or prosecuted for it. We'll discuss when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. It is so good to be back in studio, but stories like this make me a little sad. You've got all these lunatics down in Portland who are members of Antifa now dressing in these giant inflatable animal costumes, trying to say, Portland's not scary. Portland's not dangerous. We're just a bunch of Portland goofballs. Look at us. Look how silly we are. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's not what it is. We know who you guys are. In fact, Mike, I actually asked a friend of mine who's got a ton of video footage from 2020 that hasn't been revealed yet. I said, can you give me a flash drive of all that? And hopefully they're going to give it to me, and then we can start releasing all the insanity from the autonomous zone that may not have been seen yet. We're going to put all that out, show everybody what Antifa actually is. A group of black-clad individuals believed to be affiliated with Antifa were observed transporting large quantities of riot gear and supplies into a storage unit in southwest Portland on Monday evening. According to Katie Daviscourt, writing for the Post-Millennial. By the way, kudos to Katie. She could have said, okay, I got to meet Trump. I'm done. She's still covering this stuff, by the way. The supplies are being used for the 24-hour occupation outside the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility, which has been under siege by left-wing extremists for more than 4 consecutive months. By the way, Mike, we have definitely bypassed the 120 consecutive nights of rioting over at the federal courthouse during 2020. Now, granted, recently they haven't been rioting as much because they have their goofy costumes, but they're there every night. What do you people do for work? I really just want to, what do you guys do for work that you could be up till all hours of the evening and be down in Portland at that building every night? Because we know it's attracting crazies from all over the place. Video footage posted on social media shows masked individuals dressed in all black transporting supplies and equipment into a large storage center roughly 1 block away from the anti-ICE encampment, which is located just outside the ICE facility in front of an elementary school. The storage unit, used as a secret base, has been revealed to be inside the South Waterfront heated storage business on Bancroft Street. Many individuals involved in the 24-hour occupation are affiliated with Antifa. Earlier in the evening, independent journalist Nick Shirley recorded video footage of anti-ICE demonstrators unloading supplies, including riot gear, from a large U-Haul truck and delivering them to the encampment. A group of Antifa-affiliated individuals was observed hauling items such as gas masks, camper cookers, tarps, you name it. This is crazy, by the way. Absolutely crazy. Fed's got to go in and break that up. Well, you know what else Antifa's probably going to be at this weekend is the No Kings riots. Oh, I'm sorry. Mostly peaceful riots. Oh, I'm sorry. Fiery, but mostly peaceful riots. King 5 News. My God. So here's the thing. I come back online and I'm looking at all the news that I missed. You want to know the worst takes on everything that I missed? King 5 and the Seattle Times. The 2 worst takes. King 5 was taking the side of Hamas in the prisoner release. In the hostage release. King 5 was taking the side of the people who are holding the hostages. They're taking the side of Hamas. It was crazy. Absolutely crazy. So King 5, of course, as no surprise whatsoever, what are they doing? They're taking the side of Antifa. 4 months ago, millions of Americans held rallies across the U.S. to denounce the expansion of executive power under President Donald Trump, likening him to the British monarchs that the founders rebelled against to found the United States. Hey, King 5, why did we have a rebellion? Wasn't it about taxes? Which party wants to raise taxes? Which party wants to lower taxes? Who wrote this stupid thing? Chris McCrory? Chris McCrory. Now organizers are planning a second No Kings protest with more than 2,500 separate marches and rallies set to take place on Saturday, October 18th. Now, they write this like you write those articles about what to expect with the Mariners playoffs. That's how this article is written. Well, you want to park here and you want to go. That's how this thing is written. Oh, how many people are going? Why is it called No Kings? What's different about this No Kings protest? It's really written that way. But here's the worst one, and this is by Katrina Morgan over at King 5. By the way, tell me if this sounds familiar to you, because it sounds like somebody cut and pasted it. Ready? 4 months ago, millions of Americans participated in the No Kings rallies across the U.S. to denounce the expansion of executive power under President Donald Trump, with organizers likening him to the British monarchs that the founders rebelled against to found the United States. What? Hang on. Did you just rip off your colleague there? One of them ripped off the other. Organizers said this time around 5 million Americans crowded the streets for the protest. Now a second protest with more than 2,500 separate. It's the same thing. All right, here we go. Ready for this one? Where can you legally protest? Do you need a permit in order to protest? Can you take photos or videos of a protest? Can police order a protest to disperse? What should you do if your rights are violated? Let's quote the ACLU. Sure seems to be like King 5 is encouraging people to go. Literally writing a tips and tricks for navigating a mostly peaceful riot. This is what you do. Oh, here's our facts section about how to go to the Mariners playoff game and how to riot in downtown Seattle. That's what it sounds like. Absolutely crazy. That's King 5 for you. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Ron in Tacoma. Ron, only got a minute. Make it quick, buddy.
No problem. I definitely support No King's Day. We definitely got to get NBC off the air.
Oh, very good, Ron. I find it entertaining, and I'm sure you do as well, that nobody ever had a problem with Jay Inslee having emergency powers for 975 days, right?
Oh, right, exactly. But, just so your people out there understand, there is another option here. My family and everybody I know, we're celebrating No Klans Day. No more Democrats being elected to office. That is our...
Oh, Ron, that's not nice, but still funny. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, a Democrat lawmaker will be joining us who wrote an amazing op-ed for the Seattle Times about why we need to think the juvenile justice system. And I actually agree with most of it. We'll have that for you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. My friends, I love when Democrats come on the show because it happens so infrequently. I love when they come back a second or third or fourth time because that really happens even less than the original time. I can count on one hand the number of Democrats that have been on the show repeatedly, and I try to be nice. I really, really do. But we love when our Democrat friends come on the show, especially when there's an occasion to find something we might agree on. Representative Lauren Davis wrote this amazing op-ed for the Seattle Times. And the reason I liked it so much is because she can look at votes she's taken, of policies she's supported, and said, these aren't working. How do we change them? How do we go in a different direction? And it's very hard for any of us to say, hey, what I'm doing isn't working. We know the famous thing, the hardest thing to do in sports is go into the locker room in the halftime and say, hey, how do I change the entire strategy that got me to the Super Bowl in the first place and try and do something else? Joining us now to discuss this amazing op-ed is Representative Lauren Davis from Shoreline. Thank you for being with us today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So what inspired you to write this? Because to put yourself out there like that, I can't imagine it got you a lot of friends in your own side of the aisle. It probably got you more friends on my side of the aisle. Why'd you want to write this?
Because I care deeply, as do all lawmakers, about our communities and about public safety and about these young people entangled in our juvenile justice system. But because of the huge amount of work that I've done of my own initiative to talk to stakeholders, to do tours, to engage with juvenile court administrators and judges and prosecutors and defense counsel, I've come to the conclusion that we are actually harming these young people, and we're also harming our broader communities. And I feel that it's my duty and obligation as a policymaker to speak out.
Now, what were the things that you think specifically we're doing wrong at the legislative level that we could correct, hopefully, and put things on a better track?
Yeah, so in the op-ed, I covered some 8-odd different policies, but I guess I can try to chunk them. I think some of them have to do with what I would call more upstream interventions, so interventions before a young person ever hits the criminal system. So things like intervening with a young person who is truant, intervening with a young person who is exhibiting mental health or substance use symptoms that are untreated and spiraling. And then the other group, I would say, has to do with kids who are actually contacting the legal system. So regarding the more upstream piece, through a series of policy decisions over the last decade plus, we have essentially tied the hands of schools and parents and courts so that these kids are known to be spiraling. They're addicted to fentanyl, they're escalating in their criminal behavior, or they're headed in that direction, and we can't do anything. We used to have interventions, the suite of laws related to the BECA laws being one of them, which had to do with exactly these sorts of kids, kids that are truant, kids that are engaged in at-risk behaviors. I just had a meeting at one of the juvenile detention facilities, and the administrator looked at me very sternly and said, there's absolutely no question that these BECA kids are headed for the juvenile justice system without any intervention. But the legislature actually removed the intervention for those kids. We removed the funding for interventions for truant kids and at-risk youth kids, and then we also removed the enforcement mechanism for those particular types of court orders. So that's kind of a mouthful, but that was sort of more on the upstream part, not to mention the fact that juveniles ages 13 and up can refuse mental health and addiction treatment even when it's sorely needed. And then there's a whole suite of issues related to youth that do contact the legal system, which I'm happy to elaborate on if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one thing to acknowledge the problem, but also how do we solve the problem now that we've acknowledged there's an issue?
Right. Yeah, I mean, not to oversimplify things, I think in some cases, solving the problem would be a reversal, but with some nuance. Legislation is not black and white, and sometimes it gets pitched as such, and people back into their corners and their camps. But the reality is, the correct policy solution is somewhere in the middle. So, for example, related to kids being able to refuse behavioral health treatment, we shouldn't allow any parent, necessarily willy-nilly, to sort of force a kid into treatment, but there has to be some situations in which that is considered warranted. And we have to do it in a way that preserves a young person's ability to seek care on their own. With regard to the BECA kids or the at-risk youth kids, we used to use juvenile detention as a sanction, which is probably not the best intervention, but we never built an alternative and we took away the stick. So ideally, we would build back a network of these, they're called crisis residential centers, where these young people could go. On the deeper end of the spectrum, we passed a bill related to juvenile access to counsel, as it's known, which in effect prohibits law enforcement from interviewing juvenile suspects, including juvenile suspects who are threatening school shootings or bring guns to school or who are accused of rape or homicide. And we wouldn't necessarily have to do a complete reversal on that, but we could think creatively. Maybe if you are under investigation for a violent felony, maybe then that rule does not apply. We could try to think about what is the in-between space, but we've basically been ping-ponging to the extremes, and our young people are suffering.
So I'll tell you something, Representative Davis, and I don't remember if you and I discussed this in our last interview or if we discussed this off air after an interview, but I'm going to say this again. I was not especially the best behaved Ute, shall we say, back in my day. And they could have thrown the book at me for one specific thing that I did. Absolutely could have. So I understand that there is merit in not doing that occasionally, because then you get somebody who's a very successful radio host, thank God, right? Or you could have somebody who's a problem for the justice system forever. So I'm saying this again. You put yourself out there. I'm going to put myself out there as well. If I can be of help reforming any of these, or if you want my voice talking about any of this and the alternatives to the justice system, but also when the justice system is needed, I would be more than happy to collaborate with you on that, because I think right now it's not working for anybody. And I think there's a lot of common sense reforms we could possibly work on together that could get bipartisan support and really do something to fix this juvenile justice problem.
I really appreciate your offer, and I really appreciate you sharing your story. And to be clear, I believe that about all of these kids. I don't believe there's such a thing as a lost cause, but I also don't believe that compassion looks like allowing youth to publicly self-destruct in ways that harm themselves and their broader community. And that is what the suite of current laws is allowing.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Representative Lauren Davis, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for bringing this issue to the forefront and talking about it so openly. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ari.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I do feel fine. It's great to be back in the studio. We're back at the Ari Hoffman Show. And the UN has decided that they want to do Jay Inslee's Climate Commitment Act. That's right. They want a carbon tax because the UN doesn't make anything, produce anything. So what they want is they want the American money. Or rather, they want the money from anybody who exports goods or uses ships or boats. And they want to use it to fight climate change. Uh-huh. The UN was established to stop wars. They haven't been very good at that. What makes you think you're going to be good at stopping climate change? Tear the building down, or turn it into a homeless encampment, or shelter, or something. I don't know. You know what? New York needs another sports team. Let's build a stadium there. At this point, it'd be better off as a parking garage than what it's doing. The Trump administration says it will not support a proposed global carbon tax on shipping that is set for a vote next week by the International Maritime Organization. The measure, called the Net Zero Fund, or NZF, would be the first time a UN body imposed a worldwide fee on carbon emissions. Think about this for a second. If Kamala Harris had won, they'd be backing this. And you know what else I find entertaining? Lefties love these taxes for carbon. They love these climate taxes, right? But they hate tariffs. Hang on. Square that circle for a second. Just think about that for a second. So we want to make things more expensive for the worker. You're making things more expensive for the worker. As I say, look, I got my issues with the tariffs. I would prefer they be used as leverage, but okay, fine. But here you guys are yelling and screaming about what Trump's doing with tariffs. And yet now you're saying we want to support basically tariffs. You want to support taxes on shipping to make everything more expensive? Officials in the Trump administration said the plan will drive up global shipping costs by as much as 10%, hurt U.S. workers, consumers, and energy producers. Quote, the United States will not accept any international environment agreement that unfairly burdens the American people. We will not tolerate any action that increases costs for our citizens, energy providers, or shipping companies, said the administration in a statement. The proposal is backed by several European nations. Hey, why don't you guys try working for yourselves for a while as opposed to like these 3-day work weeks and sitting in cafes smoking all the time? It would impose a minimum $100 fee for every ton of greenhouse gases emitted by ships over certain limits, according to the Associated Press. Oh, where have I heard this somewhere before? So you're going to tax the carbon created by the oil companies or the shipping companies or the car companies or whoever you want. The IMO estimates that the fees could raise between 11 and 13 billion a year to fund new green shipping fuels, reward low-emission vessels, and help developing countries upgrade their fleets. Oh, wait a second, Mike, I have this idea. Instead of engines, here's what we should do. We should get these big sheets, like used for your bed, only bigger, like these big blanket things, and put them on these very, very tall posts and use the wind. Let's harness the wind energy, and we'll have the boats sail. Sails. We'll call them sails. And we'll have them go across the ocean. It may take a little longer, but you know what? I'm sure that'll be great. I think we should do that. That's how I got it. This is how we're going to save everything. We're going to go back to wooden sailing ships to move your cargo. You want some rum? We'll ship the rum, or some cotton, or whatever else. We're going to ship all that stuff. It'll be great. But, you know, that may not be fast enough. You know, we have steam. Let's do steam engines, and the sails is like kind of a backup. So if you run out of steam or something, you got your sails. This is the way. I love it. This is a great idea. Question, is anybody building fuel-efficient ships? Is anybody building electric ships which you could just charge?
How about no?
Right. I mean, aside from the Washington State ferries. Oh, wait, they're not building those either. Exactly. So if these things were profitable, who wouldn't want to buy them? Who wouldn't? I had a whole argument with my friends over the weekend where we were discussing perpetual motion machines and why electric cars can't charge off the axle when the thing's just rolling. We had a whole fight about this, and me, the non-engineer, is like, but you can do this, and they're like, you can't do this, and it was fascinating because I'm arguing with people who actually know what they're talking about. It was pretty entertaining. But at the end of the day, what are we talking about here? It's just a tax, so the UN can spend it on whatever they want to spend it on. And the UN, as corrupt and just downright waste of time and space and everything as the UN is. You want to trust them with billions more in our dollars? How about we just keep cutting them off and cutting them off and cutting them off? Because right now, they are only in existence because the U.S. allows them free space in New York and because the U.S. funds them. That's it. Now they want to tax all of us. And I want you to bear this in mind, friends. If a Democrat's in office, they're going to back something dumb like this for the UN to start taxing us. And then you're not just paying American taxes. You're not just paying Washington taxes. What happens when you have to start paying UN taxes also? Thank God President Trump won. When we come back, my friends, Zoran Mamdani takes a beating in a Fox interview. We'll have that awesome audio for you when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, so you guys can explain to me what a humpy salmon is. Streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Also coming up this hour, big win for First Amendment advocates. But before we get to any of that, saw this great text from Scott on our last segment about the UN charging a carbon tax on shipping. Says Ari, efficient shipping? You mean nuclear-powered ships like the U.S. Navy and the British Navy submarines? That's from Scott in Poulsbo. Scott, you know what? I think you're right. We need nuclear reactors on every single ship. Let's do that. Isn't that way more energy efficient? This one from John in Lakewood. There are sail devices for cargo ships that do actually help to offset fuel consumption. There is a commercial sail-powered coastal shipping in far-flung small ports. I thought the cargo submarines and the Russian Ikrit aeroplane, which use ground effect lift, are interesting possibilities. All of these things are interesting. You know what they don't require? Government funding. And if it's something that's practical, and if it's something that's going to make money, a company will do it. Like Tesla. I'm surprised Elon Musk hasn't said, I'm going to make a giant cargo ship that's completely electric-powered. Why haven't we done that yet? This is the kind of stuff that can be done by the free market. It doesn't need to be mandated by the UN. Speaking of the UN being completely irrelevant, President Trump got his ceasefire deal in the Middle East, got his peace deal in the Middle East. But the question is it going to hold? I wasn't here the past couple days, so I couldn't answer a lot of your questions on what's going on with the ceasefire, and for that I apologize. But if you have any questions right now, you can call me. But where it stands right now is Israel got back the 20 living hostages. However, there are 28 hostages whose bodies are still being held by Hamas. Hamas is claiming they don't know where they are, and they're claiming they can't find them, but somehow they managed to return 6 of them over the past couple days, except there's one little teensy tiny problem. One of them was a Gazan. So they don't even know what they're returning. Is this like with the Bebos family, that woman and her 2 beautiful little children, that they purposely returned the wrong bodies? Is it like that? Hamas is monsters. Hamas would put out surveys. Who do you think's still dead? Who do you think's still alive? When they had the living hostages. You know what's going on right now in Gaza? Right now, Hamas is trying to reestablish itself as control. Palestinian tribes or clans are trying to get control of Gaza, whether for the reason of being the next top dog like Hamas or saying we've had enough of this insanity, we want peace, and Hamas is executing them. Where's the ceasefire now crowd? Haven't heard from them anywhere. This war will end when Hamas surrenders, when Hamas is disarmed. But apparently, Hamas doesn't want to disarm. So now, the Arab countries need to step up and do what they signed to do, which is disarm Hamas. The president was talking about this earlier today.
I'm looking at what's happening, and that wasn't the deal that was made, and we'll see what happens. It's calmed down. It's a tough neighborhood. We know that. We have a commitment from them, and I assume they're going to honor that commitment. I hope they do. And I understand they brought back some additional bodies today. It's a rough deal when you think of it, right? Very rough. And we have our hostages back completely. We were very lucky with that. But it's a tough situation. They brought back bodies today, as you probably know. But they also said they're going to behave. We're going to find out if they behave. If they behave, good. If they don't behave, we'll take care of it.
Exactly right. If they don't behave, we'll take care of it. If Hamas surrenders, there's no more war. If Israel surrenders, there's no more Israel. It's as simple as that. Now, tonight, there's a debate in New York for the New York mayoral campaign. And you have Curtis Sliwa, who has no chance of winning. You have Andrew Cuomo, who has a slimmer but better chance of winning. And then you have Zoran Mamdani, who it looks like right now is going to win. Now, Zoran Mamdani did an interview with Fox News. And what was interesting was when they asked Zoran Mamdani if Hamas should disarm during this interview. Listen to what he said.
So what is your response to what Hamas is doing now?
I think those are bodies and remains that should absolutely be returned. And I think that I have no issue
with critiquing Hamas or the Israeli government, because my critiques all come from a place of universal human rights. And my focus, however, is right here in New York City and transforming the most expensive city in America into one that's affordable for each and every New Yorker.
But, okay, I want to get to that, absolutely. But do you believe that Hamas should lay down their weapons and leave the leadership in Gaza?
I believe that any future here in New York City is one that we have to make sure that's affordable for all. And as it pertains to Israel and Palestine, that we have to ensure that there is peace. And that is the future that we have to fight for.
But you won't say that Hamas should lay down their arms and give up leadership in Gaza.
I don't really have opinions about the future of Hamas and Israel beyond the question of justice and safety and the fact that anything has to abide by international law. And that applies to Hamas, that applies to the Israeli military, applies to anyone you could ask me about.
So he won't say that Hamas, the terrorist organization, should disarm. Does this surprise anybody? Of course not. Because this is the exact same guy who refuses to condemn the line globalize the Intifada. This is the exact same guy who rapped in his former career, who rapped about the Holy Land Five, who were convicted of what? Funneling money to Hamas. So, of course, he's not going to say they should disarm. This is the Democrat Party. In fact, the press secretary was calling this out earlier today.
Proved that the Democrat Party's main constituency are made up of Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals. That is who the Democrat Party is catering to, not the Trump administration and not the White House and not the Republican Party, who is standing up for law-abiding Americans, not just across the country, but around the world. And
let's not forget, Zoran Mamdani isn't just a terror supporter. This is a guy who is also a full-scale communist. Communist. Would you like to hear about some of his plans for what he plans to do? And why is this important to you here in Seattle? You already know what it's like when a communist Marxist socialist runs for office. Not only is this going to sound familiar, but if he wins, what's going to happen is you're going to see his model copied across the country. So this isn't just something we need to be worried about because it's going to happen to America's largest city in the center of capitalism in America. We should worry about this because this is going to be the new Democrat method, what they think is the method for success.
So a lot of individuals in this city pay more than 50% of their income in taxes. When you talk about a fair share, how much more than, what is the fair share? What's the number?
I've said that we should increase personal income taxes by 2%.
Is fair?
And my point is this.
Give up more than half of your income. That's
if you're making $1 million in New York City, or more than that, you can afford to pay 2% more. And the reasons you can afford to do so is because that money will be used to better your quality of life as well.
Yeah.
Because when I speak to the wealthiest New Yorkers, I hear concerns about the cleanliness of the city, the quality of life in the city, questions of public safety. This money is the money that will be used to deliver on those things so that we can ensure that we have a return on investment for all of the money that we are raising and spending right here across the 5 boroughs.
You know the problem with socialism, communism, is that eventually you run out of other people's money. He wants people to give more than half their income to the city of New York. Do you know why this is so important? And it's a little hard for Seattle people to understand, not because you guys are dumb or anything, but because Seattle geography is a little different. Let's say you commute to downtown Seattle to work. Odds are you probably also live in Seattle. You probably live in one of the suburbs because Seattle is very, 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 very spread out. But in New York, you have the suburbs, you have Long Island, you have Westchester, you have all these places, and everybody commutes to New York City to work. You don't get to vote in New York City, just like you don't get to vote here in Seattle. You don't get to vote necessarily in Seattle if you're commuting from Bellevue or anywhere else. Or if you live in Seattle, you don't get to vote in Bellevue. It's the same kind of deal in New York. And I know a lot of people who are saying their jobs are going to be affected. And if their jobs are affected, they are moving out of New York. So what happens when all those people making all that money move out of New York? Well, eventually it's going to be the same thing that happens here when the tech companies move out. They're going to start coming after you for the taxes, just like the Seattle City Council, just like the Washington State Legislature. When the guy who owns Amazon leaves and takes his gajillions of dollars with him, who do they come after for the taxes? You. We just had the largest tax increase in Washington State history because everybody is fleeing Washington because they don't want to pay these insane taxes anymore. And what's the kind of stuff he wants to spend this money on?
Let's take a look at the free buses issue just for a moment, because I know you said that the pilot project that you did was one of the biggest accomplishments of being an assemblyman. The Washington Post said this in an editorial about this. Quality inevitably declines when a service is offered for free. Vagrants and drug addicts would camp out all day on New York's buses, especially in the winter. Parents would go afraid to let their children ride alone. Wealthier residents would find another way to get around, but poor New Yorkers who depend on the bus would suffer the most. What do you say to that? Do you agree with that?
Well, I would say that they should actually look at the report of the 5 free buses we delivered across New York City.
Yeah, the Washington Post is not in my little black book of the right-wing media conspiracy. In fact, they're definitely on the other side of the aisle. But the Washington Post is saying how this program is a failure. We've had cities that tried this, and it was a failure. Look at Seattle. Look at Seattle during COVID. What happened when you made everything free for all them homeless people during COVID? They were sleeping on the light rail. They were sleeping on the buses. The buses got fleas and got lice. The meth content of the air, the fentanyl content of the air went through the roof. We know that you can just walk onto the light rail here because we don't have turnstiles. New York has turnstiles. You know, part of the broken windows philosophy is cutting down on people who jump turnstiles. But here we don't even have them. And if you get caught on the light rail, assuming there's even a guy on the light rail, what does he do? Writes you a warning. Then if it happens again, another warning, another warning, another warning, you're up to 4. Then you can go to a diversion class to not have to pay anything. You think that's incentivizing anybody to actually pay for the light rail around here? Our light rail is short $30 billion for the next thing they want to do. They want more of your money. And now they're talking about a property tax because they know so many of you aren't paying your car tabs anymore because you've had enough of this. What about this guy he said defund the police? Does he still think that way?
68% of independent voters want more police officers on the street. And Cuomo, tomorrow night in that debate, he's going to say, I'm going to bring 5,000 more police officers to the street. Will you match that and agree with him on that?
I don't look to Andrew Cuomo for leadership. And
will you put 5,000 more cops on the street?
I've been very clear. I want to keep the number of officers that we have, and I want to make it easier for those officers to do their job.
What does that mean? It means you want less police officers, right? That's what it wants. Community alternatives. How does that work out, right? New York was one of the first cities to adopt Seattle's failed bail reform idea, which was based on the law enforcement assisted diversion program we have here, which makes sure that prolific offenders continue to go free and go free and go free and go free. New York adopted it and immediately had a massive spike in crime where now you don't need to have the bail anymore. So you're going to reverse this insane policy, which has been a disaster since 2020, I believe, is when they put this into effect?
64-year-old Nicola Tanzi, who was a church leader, a pillar in his community, was brutally beaten to death. I tried to watch this video in preparation. It's very hard to watch. In a subway station in Brooklyn. 25-year-old David Mazarregos had a 20-inch sword. He's the suspect in this case. He was out. They lowered his bail so that he could get out. He was already waiting a trial for attacking someone in Chelsea. 33 past arrests. You were in favor of bail reform. Does that make you want to change your mind or think twice about reversing that?
This is a horrific incident, and it's the same video that I saw. And it's one that horrifies New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs, and it's completely unacceptable. And what it makes me think about is the necessity of providing public safety in our New York City subway system and across the 5 boroughs. And also, how do we end the revolving door? Because when you look further into the case of whether this individual or so many individuals, especially those suffering from mental health issues, what we find is so often the only mental health system that we have that's functioning in the city is Rikers Island.
Hang on. So let me make sure I got this right. You don't want to have more cops on the streets. You don't want to end this bail stupidity where people don't have to pay bail anymore. And you expect crime to get better. You want to end the revolving door justice thing. How's that going to happen when you keep releasing prolific offenders time after time after time after time? Well, for the guy who supports terrorism, the guy who supports an organization that wants the end of America, it sounds like you're talking about ending America's largest city. This guy is totally the Manchurian candidate type. This is a guy who doesn't want New York to be successful. He wants New York to be a disaster. I was having a meal with somebody I haven't seen in a really long time. And they're living in New York right now. They're from Seattle. But when I was having this discussion with them, and I said, are you voting here or are you voting there? And they said, well, I wish I was voting there because then I could vote for Mamdani. My jaw almost hit the floor. My jaw almost hit the floor. That's suicidal empathy that God Sod talks about all the time. You want to vote for this lunatic? Why? On what basis? But that's the left. That is the left. Mamdani was on The View last week. This anti-Semitic, pro-Hamas communist goes on The View, and listen to the welcome he gets.
Welcome back. Zoran Mamdani has been a political lightning rod since pulling off a stunning victory in the New York City mayoral primary, winning the Democratic nomination with more votes than any candidate in the city's history. His grassroots campaign and social progressive message is resonating beyond the borders of New York, and even has, the White House calling him out. So please welcome New York State Assemblyman and Democratic mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani. We got an hour of the show. So y'all gonna have to calm down so we can talk to you.
Okay. Well, you
You're
certainly have some fans here, Assemblyman.
That's a self-described communist Hamas supporter walking onto a set of a TV show in New York, and they're all cheering for him. They're all, not a single boo. I didn't hear a single boo. Nothing at all. They're all cheering for this guy. Less than a quarter century after 9/11, this is who New York is about to elect. A guy who supports Hamas, a guy who wants to defund the police, a guy who wants to redistribute wealth, a guy who wants to release as many prolific offenders as he can. This is who New York City is about to elect. You thought they would have had enough with de Blasio. And mark my words, we know this in Seattle. When one communist is successful, when one socialist is successful, they are followed by more and more and more. What happened when Kishama Sawant won? You got yourself a Teresa Mosqueda. You got yourself an Alexis Mercedes Rinke. You got yourself a Tammy Morales. That's what happens. They follow the exact same model because the same people will vote for them again and again and again. And this is what is going to happen around the country. And you're not going to have a Republican Party and a Democrat Party anymore. What you're going to have is the Hamas Party, or whatever far-left craziness you've got there, Sharia law Islamic Party, and then you've got common sense, everybody else who's on the other side. This is what is at stake here. For our New York listeners who are listening to the show, you got to make sure you're registered. If you're not registered, you got to do it right away. And you got to make sure you vote against this guy. What I'm concerned about is that everybody has been bashing this guy so much, it's like the parental advisory warning label on the CDs in the 90s. As soon as you slapped that on one of those things, we all went out and bought it. Ooh, it's edgy, it's fun, it's cool. And unfortunately, that's the Mamdani effect. And you're going to see people copying his model and replicating it across the U.S. We're here in Seattle. We are survivors of his model. It's an absolute disaster, and we're about to double down and do it again. That's the problem with a guy like Mamdani. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, we're going to catch you up on what's going on with this humpy salmon craze out at the Mariners. Had to study and learn about this. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast, right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder to download the KVI app and, of course, subscribe to our podcast so that way you never miss a minute of the show. Also, check out KVI.com. Got all new content up there. You can also stream the show over there. And in addition to that, we're going to be posting my election picks soon. So if you need a little help filling out your election ballots where you just go, there is nobody to vote for, we can help you out over there. That's at KVI.com. All right. I'm a baseball fan, but I'm not so up on the mascot culture. I know the big mascots. I know the Phillies have the Philly Fanatic. I know the Mets have Mr. Met. I know there's other mascots out there. I did not know what a humpy salmon was. I did not know about this whole thing, and I go to a lot of Mariners games. I had season tickets to the Mariners last year and the year before because of the All-Star game. I went to Mariners games for years. I had no idea what this was. I really had no clue. And now there's like a press release going out about it.
Well, and this isn't even a Ari's a clueless transplant type of thing. I mean, like we've litigated that in other contexts. This is not one of those. Yesterday, I was seeing that Humpy the fish was on top of the Space Needle with the Mariner moose. And I say to a bustling newsroom, I'm like, what the heck is a humpy? And then one of my colleagues that may be anonymous for this telling of the story turns around, like the way that I jump on you, Ari, about your transplant stuff. He's like, what do you mean you don't know what humpy is? And I'm like, I have no idea. And then he tags in a cohort from the news. Ladies and gentlemen, the news saying like, how long have you lived here? As if this is like a long-standing thing. Turns out this humpy fish thing only goes back 2 seasons.
That's it. 2 seasons.
That's it. And it's like, and they're treating me like I treat you with the, like, how dare you not know the Ballad of Humpy the Fish?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Let's go through this for a second. Correct me if I'm wrong at any point. They have these fish run the outfield during the games, right?
Yeah, it's similar to like the hydro races or the ball thing, follow the ball or whatever. It's a game. You know, you get like these people in these elaborate fish costumes that run around the warning track and it's a race and apparently Humpy never wins.
Okay. Do we know the names of the boats for the hydroplane races? I know one's like a casino and one's something else. I don't know which one's which. It's red, green, or blue or whatever it is, right? I don't know which one's which. Do the baseball hats have names? Of course not. And in fact, when do most people go to the bathroom? During the crazy things that are happening in between games. People getting mad at us that we don't know what this is. First of all, we're there to see the baseball. But second of all, I compare this more to what happened with the Mets last season with, what's his face? Grimace.
Nothing could kill the Grimace.
There you go, except for this Mets season. So what happens, except for the pride flag? That's a whole nother discussion. So what happens? Last year, Grimace throws out the first pitch. Grimace from McDonald's throws out the first pitch as a promotional thing at the Mets game. And somebody notices that since Grimace throws out the first pitch, the Mets don't lose. They just keep winning and winning. And they started calling it the Grimace era, and they built up this whole thing. And people just thought it was some kind of promotion with McDonald's. But then when they started really embracing Grimace, Grimace shows off to the playoffs. They got a seat for him painted in the outfield. That's when they blew the playoffs. Mike, what happens last night? They fully embrace the Humpy and they get killed.
Yeah, so basically where the legend begins. Oh, let's see. I think Hank has something to say about that.
The legend begins right here.
Thank you, Hank.
Come on.
Exactly.
So basically this Humpy thing starts during that 15-inning marathon, and basically Humpy never wins. So, but that game went on long enough to where they did a second 7th-inning stretch. So Humpy's running his heart out, and something happens with the other fishes. I don't know if this was staged or not, but Humpy breaks through. Humpy breaks his 162 losing streak at the salmon races. Now, and then the Mariners proceed to win that game. I wouldn't say they dominated. They just broke the tie successfully.
Sure.
Finally, mercifully. Talk about needing a mercy rule. Goodness. But then, like, that's taken as a sign, you know, along with, like, your dumb rally caps and your dumb rally shoes and all these other superstitions and traditions. So now it's like, oh, man, there's magic in that fish. There's magic in the Humpy. So it backfires. They run Humpy last night. Humpy wins. Mariners lose by checks, notes, 12 runs.
Here's something else. It's manufactured. Everybody
Yes.
out here knows that
That's right.
They predetermine who wins the hydroplane race every game. It's all fake. They predetermine where that baseball goes under the hat. You think they're not predetermining which fish runs this thing? So when you try to make that a thing, which is manufactured,
that's right.
It doesn't, especially the second time you're doing it in a seventh inning stretch. Guys, come on. And then coming down on people like me and Mike who don't know what a humpy salmon is. Come on. I mean, really, with something like that. Of course we know who the Mariners Moose is. Of course we know who Blitz is. Of course we know who Bowie is, unfortunately. We know these things. I don't know. What's the name of the Tacoma Rainiers mascot? They got like a mini moose.
Rhubarb.
Rhubarb. Okay. Sorry I don't know that, and
Yeah.
I've even been out to their games before. But you expect me to know the name of the fish that's running in the outfield? Sorry I missed the Ballad of the Humpy.
And they don't even show it on TV. That's what I was arguing with Zach about.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I just dropped that dude's identity. But I was to keep
just
you
sold out
anonymous.
young
Sorry,
Zach.
buddy.
Oh,
But yeah, no, he's just like, well, yeah, no, they run this during the seventh inning stretch. I'm like, is it on TV? And he's like, well, no, you'd have to be there at the game. I'm like, so how would I know then?
Right. And then there's the political spin on this.
Oh, here we go.
Why are we discussing sports? To show you that if we didn't have politics, we'd be a sports show. But here's something else here. Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell is so desperate to appear like he's the winning guy that he is bandwagoning off this. Now, he's probably a Mariners fan because he's from here, et cetera, et cetera. But this guy is posting more about this than he posted about anything else ever the entire time he's in office. The official account, the non-official account, the humpy, the this, the other thing. Dude, we know somebody else is running your social media because you can't form a coherent sentence. There's no way you're actually typing any of these things out. But now you're talking about a community rally at City Hall for Humpy and for the Mariners. Okay, I have admitted to being a bandwagon fan because I think it's fun. I think it's nice. I can name Cal Raleigh and maybe one or two other guys. That's my extent on the Mariners. I want them to win. I've been very clear about this. I think it's great for the city. I think it's nice for all the fans who have waited for so long. At least I'm admitting it. This guy is so desperate to win an election. He's trying to grab the Mariners' juju off it or whatever, and he's like, oh, see, I'm leading it. I'm going to grab a trident and lead everybody to the stadium. I'm going to take it right out of the KVI booth. I'm going to take that giant trident and go marching right. You are so fake. You are so fake. But here's something else, Brucey. If they lose, you get the credit for that too. Because you put yourself out front on it now of all times because it's popular. You are the worst kind of bandwagon fan. And this is worse. You know what? This is worse. You could tell when a mayor is actually caring about these things and actually involved. You've seen it. You've seen it before. This just feels manufactured. Like Humpy. Like Bruce Harrell's campaign. Like everything, it just feels manufactured and it feels disingenuous. The whole thing is just bothering me at this point. And I'm not saying it's going to stop me from cheering for the Mariners. The Mariners are like, I don't even know what's going on over here. I'm just here to win a baseball game. We want the Mariners to win. We do. But now it's political, and now it's ridiculous, insane, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Hopefully the Mariners actually win tonight, and we can celebrate that as opposed to this humpy nonsense or anything else.
Also, public service announcement. Stop putting shoes on your head. I know where you walk to get to the stadium. Gross. I was at dinner last night, and I'm like, why do they have shoes on their head? That's disgusting. I see where you walk. I mean, it's like, I think you'd have better luck with the unpermitted, undocumented hot dog carts than you would putting shoes on your head after walking through Union Station. No, thank you.
Yeah, I walked through Pioneer Square to get here. I took the light rail to get here. Let me put the shoe on my head of where the homeless guy peed on the ground before I got here. That makes no sense, people. You want to turn your hats inside out or anything else? Fine. But putting your shoes on your head? Okay, there's a lot of this culture I don't understand yet. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. Big win for the First Amendment here locally. Sets the Democrats back on their heels and undoes Ferguson's wild agenda. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. My friends, we had really, really good news at the tail end of last week that this insane, absolutely insane plan the Democrats had to restrict religion here in the U.S., or actually I'd say attack religion here in the Washington state, is actually going the way of the dodo because it was a clear violation of the First Amendment. Joining us now to discuss this huge, huge, huge legal milestone, Michael McHale, Senior Counsel at the Thomas More Society. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to be here.
Such a pleasure. Now let's start from the beginning. Basically what this boils down to is the Democrats wanted priests to break the seal of the confessional, which is a huge, huge deal. They can get defrocked for something like that. And I understand they have an issue where they wanted them to be mandated reporters for anything that's going on, but this doesn't seem to address the problem. It just seemed like an attack on religion. Am I reading this correct?
That's exactly right. They passed a law making clergy mandatory reporters. And, you know, just having a mandatory reporting requirement for clergy is not necessarily the problem. It's that the legislature refused to exempt communications made in the seal of confession. In other words, to include the longstanding clergy penitent privilege, which has existed in Washington law and exists all across the country, a privilege for the clergy penitent sacred communications. And they intentionally, in Washington, left that out of the law. And it was very clearly intentional. Senator Noel Frame made explicit in her advocacy of this law, she was a leader, that she wanted the clergy to have to disclose and break the seal of confession, which results in automatic excommunication for a priest. They cannot do it. And if they refuse to do it, this law would require them to go to jail for up to 364 days for each violation. So this was just a blatant attack on religion, just like Senator Frame wanted.
Now, we had Senator Frame on the show. She hasn't been back since. But we had her on the show, and we said, this is a clear violation of the First Amendment, and what problem are you trying to solve? Now, if we're going back in time and talking about the issues the Catholic Church used to have with what was going on inside the priesthood, okay, but this doesn't address that. And also, there are other ways of addressing these issues. It seemed like this was a blatant attack, and when I called her out on it, she just said, well, I was a victim of whatever when I was younger. And I said, I'm sorry. That's tragic. That's awful. You don't get to tear up the Constitution because of that.
That's exactly right. We made the same argument. We filed a brief on behalf of Bishop Robert Barron. He's sort of a thought leader in the Catholic Church, Bishop of the Diocese of Winona, Rochester in Minnesota. He'd previously been a bishop in Los Angeles. But we made that exact point that even though Senator Frame said in her testimonies that this was a result of reports about clergy sex abuse, this law has nothing to do with that. It just does not get at that issue whatsoever. And meanwhile, the church already has its own requirements that flow from the crisis that's happened in previous decades. It has its own requirements that all staff, not just clergy, are mandatory reporters when they learn of possible child abuse or neglect. But the seal of confession remains sacrosanct. That is untouchable, essentially. And that's because it flows from the Catholic Church's belief and understanding of Scripture. We believe that Jesus requires the sacrament of confession for serious sins, and that essentially Catholics are communicating to Jesus himself in that sacrament. It's a very, very particular strong belief that goes back to over 2,000 years. And the state really has no business disagreeing with it. Even if it disagrees, it has to at least respect that belief. And it's clear that Senator Frame and her colleagues did not. And thus the good news, we end up getting, just like you warned her, the court made very clear this is a blatant violation of the First Amendment. You cannot attack the Catholic sacrament of confession without violating the Constitution. So thankfully we had that ruling. It's unfortunate we had to go through this, though.
Now, Michael, there's a scene from The West Wing. I don't know if you ever watched that show, but there's a great scene from The West Wing where they're debating the death penalty. And when they're debating the death penalty, they said this is why we don't let victims decide the punishment, because they're not the people who should be deciding it. It should be the courts. We have a legal system. Otherwise, we'd be back at Hammurabi's code, an eye for an eye, a this for that. That's what we'd be doing. It seems to me like Senator Frame, whatever experience she had, while horrific it may be, just decided to declare war on the whole religion, and the Democrat Party, including Bob Ferguson, went along with her on it.
But that's exactly right. We saw it in her testimony. She said that even a bishop testifying, advocating for including the clergy penitent privilege exception was traumatizing. That was traumatizing testimony. And maybe it was personally to her traumatizing, but in her capacity as leader of the legislature, it was essentially a disparagement of the Catholic Church and just merely seeking to protect the Catholic sacrament of confession. And government just has no business proceeding on an assumption that a particular religious belief is not legitimate. Now, it can certainly account for all kinds of interests and protect public safety, but it can't just assume the religious belief is illegitimate. That's what the state of Washington did here, unfortunately. Thankfully, the court vindicated that protection, but this is a problem we see all across the country, and at the Thomas More Society, we're constantly trying to show courts that government cannot just presume our religious beliefs are illegitimate. Unfortunately, it happens too often, but this is a good step in the right direction to try to, course correct.
Michael, before we let you go, we've spoken so much about the case. I didn't give you an opportunity to talk about the Thomas More Society and why you guys were involved in the case. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your organization and what they do?
Yeah, we are a national public interest law firm, and we fight in courts for the rights to life and religious liberty and family. And this was right in our wheelhouse. We were following this bill as it went through the Washington legislature, and were made aware of it by some people in Washington as well. So we were prepared to file our own lawsuit. It turns out a lot of people, thankfully, a lot of religious liberty advocates were interested in filing a lawsuit, and we had the Beckett Fund for Religious Liberty and Alliance Defending Freedom had their own lawsuit. Thomas More Society was right there as well. So what we did is filed a brief on behalf of Bishop Robert Barron, further explaining to the court some of the problems of this law. And actually, the court directly adopted one of our key arguments. He actually had a hearing in July, and his first question to the state was directly from the Thomas More Society's brief on behalf of Bishop Barron. Essentially, Washington made clergy mandatory reporters without an exception for the clergy penitent privilege, and that itself violated the Catholic sacrament just based on statutory interpretation. By not including an exception, they were infringing on the sacrament. But then the law went on in a separate subsection to say, oh, by the way, I'm paraphrasing, the clergy penitent privilege is not going to apply in this statute. In other words, the law said more than it needed to, and that showed in and of itself animus by Senator Frame, animus by the Washington legislature. We made that point in our brief, and the judge directly and explicitly agreed with it, and he put it in his opinion in joining the law. So that's the kind of thing we do. We go around the country and defend religious liberty, and we try to explain to courts, present them the cases and sort of give them the material to write good opinions like this. And we're involved in cases. During COVID, we were the first to open up churches in New York and California under the First Amendment. Obviously, lots of organizations were involved in those kinds of efforts as well. We're fighting to protect kids in school from the gender ideology. Schools are saying teachers have to hide kids' gender confusion from their parents. It's a crazy time in our culture, and we're trying to be on the front lines of these battles and win these fights in courts.
Well, I really appreciate you guys taking on this fight because as a religious person myself, although it's a different religion, I believe very, very strongly in the First Amendment that it protects all of our religions. And I really appreciate you guys taking the fight. Michael McHale, Senior Counsel at the Thomas More Society, thank you so much and congratulations on the win again.
Thanks so much for your interest and thanks so much for supporting religious liberty. We appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Only good news to wrap up the show. When we come back, put a smile on your face heading into your evening commute. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news headlines, it is so good to be back. I am one of the very lucky people who enjoys his job, and I love being here. And don't get me wrong, I love the Jewish holidays, but I love being here. And just to share with you a little bit of the Jewish holidays, what was really great the other night for Simchas Torah, when you had all these hundreds of people coming to dance to celebrate the completion of the Torah, it also lined up with when the hostages were being released. It was the following night. So you had 400 people, would be my estimate at the minimum, dancing. We gave out Israeli flags. We gave out American flags. It was amazing. The energy was electric. It's so good to have the hostages home. On the flip side, still haven't gotten back all the bodies. So if you're wondering why I'm still wearing the hostage necklace when you see it in the live stream on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, X, that's why. When they're all home, I will take all this off. And my wife actually had the idea. She said, why don't we send them all to some Jewish museum and they collect all of them to show how many people are praying for this, which I thought was a really, really nice idea. I can't wait for the day where I can finally take this thing off. But until they're all home, not going to do it. Other good news. Here's what we got going on here. Right here, Voodoo Donuts is opening a Bellevue location. Gee, Mike, why do you think they didn't open in Seattle? Scratch my head a little bit there. According to downtownbellevue.com, Voodoo Donuts is set to open its first Bellevue location on Main Street this Sunday with a ribbon-cutting ceremony scheduled for 8 a.m. This is the company's 25th location nationwide. The Bellevue storefront previously housed Rudy's Barber Shop, which closed in September after receiving an eviction notice. Rudy's had operated the address since 2014 and was a longtime fixture of Old Bellevue's Main Street. Are they part of that chain, Rudy's? There's one near my house. I didn't like going there. I went there once or twice, did not like it. Went there in a pinch, didn't even like it. Not my jam. To celebrate its grand opening, Voodoo Donut will give the first 25 guests in line a free Voodoo dozen or vegan dozen. The company will also donate 20% of opening day proceeds to Bellevue LifeSpring, a local nonprofit that provides food and support to Bellevue children and families in need. The new shop will also debut a Bellevue exclusive donut called the Apple Orchard, selected by fans in an online vote. The fall-inspired donut features a cinnamon sugar shell filled with spiced apple pieces and apple cinnamon fluff. Partial proceeds from each Apple Orchard donut sold through November 30th, 2025 will also go to Bellevue LifeSpring. Voodoo Donut, known for its colorful and unconventional treats, will offer more than 40 handcrafted varieties at the Bellevue location. Favorites like the Bacon Maple Bar, Voodoo Doll, Grape Ape, Memphis Mafia, and several vegan options will be available as well. They were founded in Portland, Oregon in 2003. Voodoo Donut has built a nationwide following for its creative flavors and unique store designs. Me personally, I'm more of the Krispy Kreme guy. I know it's a different taste. It's a different guy. These look more like the Dunkin', a heavier Dunkin'. That's what the Voodoos look like. A heavier, more artsy Dunkin'. And while I like Dunkin' just fine, I was converted over to Krispy Kreme years ago, and I love me some Krispy Kreme. I really, really do. Have I not made that clear yet on the show? We should get them as a sponsor. I talk about them so often on the show. I love me some Krispy Kreme donuts. Anyway, that's Voodoo Donuts opening tonight. Now, we're all pulling for the Mariners tonight. Hopefully, we have good news to report tomorrow with the Mariners score. Hopefully, they beat the Blue Jays, and they are well on their way to actually winning the American League, because I would love to see them in the World Series. I really, really would. Don't forget, when we're not on air, follow me on socials, Ari Hoffman Official on Facebook and Instagram, The Hofffather over on Twitter, and you can also catch up on past episodes at KVI.com and with the KVI app. That's going to do it for us today, my friends, but fear not, we will be back tomorrow with more insane stories and more exciting guests. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.